Right. So last class I have discussed some part actually. So deployment. Where did I stop last class? In the last class,
Deployment.
WLS I
On
completed.
deployment, on yes, right.
So we need to start the ANT tool, right?
Yes, right. ANT tool.
So deploying SOA deployment is generally deploying using the ANT tool. So what is the ANT tool generally? Why we are deploying the application using the ANT tool? So that part we'll able to see now. Right. So we have seen deployment using the WLST. Then today we'll able to see how to deploy using the ANT tool. ANT is nothing but another neat tool. So in the production environment regarding the SOA, most of the cases we will go with the ANT tool only. Right? How you can able to deploy. ANT is nothing but another neat tool which is used to deploy the applications, composite applications into the SOA console, and which is coming from the Apache Corporation. And why we need to go with the ANT tool? ANT which is going to be enabled quickly. You can create and as well as you can compile, and you can packing, and as well as you can deploy, undeploy, quickly into the different target environments and testing. Whenever the developers they want to test about their applications generally, quickly, so they will go with the UNT tool. UNT is nothing but another neat tool which is going to enable the quickly deploying the composite applications to the different target environments. Then so in WebLogic, whenever you're deploying using the ANT tool, so build.xml file, which is important actually. Whereas coming to the SOA, no need to be prepare any build.xml files. It was already there, all the applications. Sorry, all the .xml files. By using those XML files, we need to be deploy the applications to the SOA composite application. See, go to over there. Is there any applications was there in a SOA composite application? Just you see here. See, these are all the default applications, and go to the EM console, expand the SOA infra, to expand the SOA infrastructure. There is click on the SOA composite SOA infra. See right here, dashboards and deployed composites. The moment you click on here, deployed composites, and over deployed composites was there, and instances, then you can able to monitor. See what I have to do. I want to deploy the application using the SOA, using the ANT tool. And then how you can able to deploy? Let's see. I'm just pasting one application on this. Right. See how to deploy the Java, how to deploy this. First, what I need to do, steps. What are the steps actually? First, we'll able to see the deployment. You can set the class path. So further, go to the following path and bin. You can set the class path. And later, what I have to do, you know, go to the SOA home and bin and use this script. Add space hyphen f and hyphen star deployment.xml hyphen d. Enter. It will ask the server URL. You can enter the server URL. Enter the share file location. In which file you are getting that share file, you can enter that path and enter the admin username and as well as the admin password. You have to be enter admin username and as well as the admin password, and click on OK. Then the application which is going to be deployed to the administration console, it does not have any problem. So this is the syntax generally, and this is the process. Let's we see the process. Go to the administration, Linux console. I'm setting the class path. Here what I have to do, dot slash set WLNV dataset. Your environment has been set. So next what I have to do, SOA home and common and bin. I think SOA home bin, not common bin. Right. So under this already there, see, already there. I can able to check which space and which is working. Yes, which is coming from my home. Okay. Then all these generally already which are available, all the deployment file. So and sca deploy where it is available. So this is the script actually. VA space and sca already which is written in that. Okay. No need to be prepared again build.xml file in the SOA and click on save. What I have to do, the first step, I need to be set that I already set the class path. Next, go to the SOA home bin. I need to be issue this command actually, and space -f and deploy.xml -d. I'm just entering.
Hyphen D means sir?
Deploy.
Deploy, na?
Yes, deploy.
So F means?
F means file. It is going to be executing this.
Okay, okay.
Right. It is asking input server URL. HTTP colon localhost colon 5001. Your server URL. Okay.
Okay.
Share file location. Home Linux desktop dot zar. Enter. And it is going to be asking the see response code 404. What it is telling? There is no server which is running with that. Okay. 404 means there is no service which is running with that server, right? Temporarily which is unavailable. Clear?
Okay, clear.
Deployment is not, which wasn't success actually. HTTP colon because SOA server URL which is a different 8001 and share file location /home /linux desktop dot share. Maybe that is will be long. Username web logic. So password welcome one for basic authentication. So this time it is going to be deployed. It is going to be deploying to this EM console. What you got here? Deploy composite success, right?
Okay.
The code should be 200 in the sense your deployment has completed successfully. Are you able to clear?
Yes, sir.
So go to the administration console and click on refresh button, EM console, click on refresh button. So by default, which we are deployed to the default partition. Here, student result application, that only I have deployed. Student result application. What is my application? Server URL. This is my application then, which I have deployed. Praveen, from your side, keep it mute, okay?
Yeah, Madhav, hello.
Just keep mute from your side, okay?
Okay.
Whenever you'll get asked the doubt, okay? Whenever you'll get any doubt, you can ask.
Yeah. Sure. Sure. So I'll mute my side. Right.
Right. So then I have deployed this application into the administration EM console. Then go to the EM console and expand the partition, and to each partition you have deployed, and click on that application and test that application whether it was deployed successful or not. I just clicked on that application generally and click on the test, and you have to be enter the input valid input arguments. See, this is what generally ID, you can enter some ID, and name, you can enter some name, and marks, you can enter some marks. This is what actually student results application. So after I enter all these inputs, generally what I have to do, click on the test web service. So the moment you click on the test web services, generally, you can able to test the service. So now you're giving the request and will get the response. See, and paused. So this request has going to be generated. So in this way, you can able to test the composite application after you deploy into the administration EM console. So then what I have to do, I need to be do the some composite control also. Home, you can monitor all the applications deployed into this, EM console or service infrastructure, and instances and false and rejected messages. Same in tools, you can call it as error hospital. It is going to be managing from this error hospital. Instead of false and rejected messages in tools, you will get the error hospital. And unit test, you can test like whatever we have done, that is called unit test only. We are checking about the application functionality and rules and policies. And then what I have to do here, you can monitor about this application performance generally, only this composite application performance. Then if you want, you can deploy more than one application to this partition only. Then after that, you can export this SOA composite to the different target environment. So instead of clicking on the test web services, you just click on the application and go to the SOA composite control, click on the test service and click on like this also. And you can configure the SOA infrastructure properties and common properties and service and conference properties and general information, means it is going to be displaying about that SOA, you know SOA version and which path you are running, what is the middleware home, everything which is going to be displaying. So how to control whether you need to be start, actually go to here, see SOA partition control. You can start all these, how many applications, composite applications you deployed into this partition, you can start all and you can stop all. All you can able to do at once only. Start all and stop all only. So then, this you can able to do start all, stop all, and as well as activate all and retire all. So this is about how you can able to control, right, about the SOA composite application after you deploy it. So then after completing this, I want to undeploy the composite application generally. How to undeploy? For undeploying the SOA composite application using the ANT tool under the same path only, if you're deploying into the differentiation, means you have to be set the class path and later you just go to the SOA home bin and issue the following command, right? Same script only, but instead of D, this time we will able to do the undeploy. See, undeploy. I just enter. That's going to be executing. See, server URL, localhost colon 8001, and composite instance name. So student results. Then revision 1.0, basic authentication. If it does not have any problem, that is going to be undeploy the application. See, undeploy the composite successfully. Go to the EM console and click on refresh button. So go to the partition. There is only one application here. Expand the partition, default partition. Otherwise, click on this default partition. You have only one application called simple approval. Whatever we have deployed using that, ANT tool, using that ANT tool which was undeployed again. This is how you are going to be deploying, undeploying the applications. Then what is the SOA composite application management scripts actually? And space -scar test.xml generally, which is used to attach, extract, and as well as validate the configuration plan for the composite application. And you can compile the composite application. You can pack the composite application by using this script, and scar deploy.xml, you can deploy and deploy the applications. like this using. Then this is the syntax actually. This is what actually management, all the composite application XML files using the ANT tool, which are available under this path, all those, whatever I explained. Key package, testing and deploying, and as well as, test.xml file, and this is what generally, all these XML files which are available under the SOA home bin whenever you are working with the ANT tool. In real time, most of the cases we will go like this only, whatever I have done till now using the ANT tool, we will able to deploy the SOA composite application, most of the cases. Then next method we'll able to see deploying the applications using the, SOA using the G developer, right in the SOA. Generally this method developer will do. Sometimes, so they will ask in the interview how you can able to deploy the applications using the J developer. So what I have to do first, I need to be set up the J developer environment, which we have done while we were installing the SOA suite. Then what I have to do, start that J developer and log into that. You just prepare the one sample application, like without taking any composites. Then you can create the connection. Then after that you can deploy that application from the J developer to EM console. Deploying using the J developer to EM console, like by preparing the connection, by configuring the connection. Then, so you need to be test here. Then after that, see here how you can able to deploy. You can able to manage the applications, using the J developer. Later how you can able to manage in different target environments. That is the reason I told you. Most of the time in the real time, we always go with the ANT tool only. Right. I just go to over there. I need to be start the J developer. And JDev home, WL server, and common, and a quick start. And in that you may have that, go to this path. Under this you can execute that quick start data switch. And launch the J developer. Right, click on OK. It will take some time. Shiva, you asked for some book, right, regarding the SOA.
Yes, right.
So I have seen yesterday generally in PAC CT. So maybe that is 2000, I guess, something like that amount they are going to be offering. You can able to get 12C book, okay,
Okay.
which wasn't actually new features, but you can able to, you asked, right? I already sent Oracle handbook actually, one book, and similarly like that you will get the 12C also.
Okay. Sir, I have one doubt.
Go on.
When we have deploy the so RQ file by using ANT tool,
Hmm.
But no need to give any partition, I mean target file, no?
It is deploying to the default partition. Else you can specify it also.
But
Hyphen.
it is not asking, no?
No, it will ask. That what actually I have deployed in a different method. All commands you can give at the same time while giving the ANT. ANT space you can specify. That's the reason I told you, right? I have showed you, right, in the script. Syntax I will show you here. See here. Here.
Okay.
You can able to give that partition name also. So if you give like this complete command, you can able to do like this, okay? Are you able to understand my point?
Yes, I am able to understand.
Right. You'll able to give, like all commands you'll able to give at the same time, and you have to be changing the partition also. By default, it is going to be deploying to the default if it does not specify any partition name.
Okay.
If you specify any partition name, then it will take that only. Right. See here, click on, go to the file. So click on new. Click on OK. This part will do by the developer, but I am developing one sample application, okay? Select the SOA. Click on next. SOA sample composite name. And see any one of the composite you can select. For time being, I can select the empty composite. Like what I have to do here, you can design all these developers generally they will design all these MQ adapters, JMS adapters, FTP adapters, and file adapters. It depends on the requirement they can able to do. So what I have to do after this need to be compile actually. Right click class that application and run this application generally. It is going to be compiling and make sure see and space hyphen compile.xml. You can compile using that also. Make sure you will get the build successful. Then after that what I have to do, I need to be generate the scarf file generally. Deploying. So a sample. See deploying to the share file means you are deploying to the J console only, J developer only, here only. In the sense you are preparing. While you are deploying, you need to be prepare the revision also, right? You need to be give the revision. I'm just entering for remembering purpose 11.0. And this is configuration plan we will able to discuss in next after completing this deployment only. So click on next. This file it is going to be generating sca underscore SOA sample revision 11.0.jar file. So click on next. Under this J developer J home B, then it is going to get success and So under this path generally which is going to be deployed. Application 1, my work. Let's go to over there and I need to be. I want to show you how you can able to generate the SCA file, developers generally. So my work and application 1. See here, project 1. Go to the deploy. Able to see it is generated right file?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yes, right, sir.
Right. So then after that what I need to do? I need to be deploy the application, right? I need to be deploy the composite application, to the EM console from the JDeveloper. How you can go to the my project 1 and deploy sample project instead of deploying to the SAR application, this time deploy to the application server. Click on next. So what I have to do here? Click on next. I need to be create the application connection. So click on plus connection name. So our server connection and click on next. Username, WebLogic and password. Welcome one. Click on next and localhost and 5001 and click on next. Test the connection. Make sure you will get test success. Right. So click on next and click on finish button. You have completed creating the connection. The moment you click on finish, you will be able to get that connection here. See, automatically it selects the connection. You can create more than one connection also, there is no problem. Click on next. It is going to be looking up the SOA server. How many servers which are running actually? See here, default, CDS part, SOA part and TCS part, these many partitions which are available. I'm going to be deploying to the SOA partition. Click on next and click on finish button. Make sure it is building actually until completing the build, until completing the deployment. It is going to be generating the log file here only. See, receives. Deployment finished right here. Then go to the EM console. Right, go to the EM console and expand the SOA partition. It's refreshing. Right, see, expand the SOA partition. See SOA sample which is deployed, right? Click on the SOA composite application and you can test. Actually, which does not have any services in that SOA composite application. It's an empty one. So that is the reason test is disabled actually. You can test the SOA composite application, then undeploy using from the EM console. Undeploy you cannot able to do from the JDeveloper. You can deploy only, and you can test it because developers they can deploy and they can test like this here only, right? So how you can able to undeploy? Again, go to the EM console and go to the SOA deployment and undeploy it. You can undeploy the SOA composite applications from the EM console like this fashion. Right. This is how you're going to be undeploying. So then after that, what I have to do after completing that undeployment, so I want to, move with that advanced deployment generally. So in this way, you can able to customizing the SOA composite application for to the different target environment. In the developer generally what they will do, they can create and they can design all the SOA composite applications in the J developer and they can deploy whatever we have done. And they can check into the test environment generally. They can, developers generally, the administrator generally, they can deploy using the ANT tool. Then after that, they can check out. Then so then after that, so in production, in production environment also same process will do. Then see, log into that enterprise manager console. In the sense EM console, you can manage and monitor about the deploy SOA composite applications depends on the requirement. See, in the deployment there is no plan, there is no configuration plan, whereas in test you have the plan, whereas in production in the plan configuration plan. So configuration plan means in the WebLogic server which you have, which we had a deployment plan. Similarly, like that configuration plan also. Whenever you are customizing the SOA composite application to the different target environments, we need to same application. We need to be prepare the deployment plan, configuration plan. What is the configuration plan, and why we are going to be prepare the configuration plan? See, configuration plan is nothing but it is a XML. It is a XML file which contains the instructions to replace the specific values like any composite, any service component, reference, and service and binding properties in the composite.xml file. So whatever you designed and developed in the JDeveloper, all the details generally which is going to be available under the config.xml in XML format. So it depends on the requirement. Whenever you are deploying to the different target environments, all the service component references, service and binding properties generally you can able to modify or you can able to replace depends on the requirement. And this file, schema location attribute of the import in a visual file you can import, and as well as attribute of include the visual file, other values generally applied these files to the SOA archive at deployment time in a target environment. Whenever create the deployment plan and this attached to the deployment plan while you are deploying to the applications, either it may be any one of the method using the GM, using the JDeveloper, using the ANG tool, and using the WLST. While you are deploying, you can specify the option called hyphen plan is equal to the plan path configuration plan, and you can deploy SOA composite applications with configuration plan. So what is the configuration plan and why you are going to be creating the configuration plan? Whenever you are deploying the same composite application to the different target environments. So that time we are going to be preparing the configuration plan. And what is the configuration plan? It is an XML file. Generally, it contains the instructions to replace specific values in any composite service component and as well as reference, service and bindings and properties in the composite.xml file. So when you design in the JDeveloper, generally, so all that information generally which is going to be available under the SOA composite.xml file. This expanded. So here which is available composite.xml file. The moment you click on the composite.xml file, it contains the complete configurations in the composite.xml file. For time being here, doesn't have anything here because this is an empty application. So what I have to do? So then how to prepare the config.xml file? There are following tools actually to prepare the configuration plan. One is using the Oracle JDeveloper, using the WLST, and using the ANT tool. These are the tools which are available in WebLogic, in SOA Suite for preparing the configuration plan. And using the ANT you can able to generate like this, and using the WLST we have that SCA package.xml file. By using that you can able to prepare the prepare the configuration plan. Then after that so let's see how we can able to do in the JDeveloper. Then how we can able to deploy the composite applications using using the configuration plan. This is regarding the SCA, right? Config plan. This is regarding the WLS. You can able to create the configuration plan by using these syntaxes. This is regarding the ANT tool. How you can able to prepare it. This is regarding the SCA attach plan and SCA validate the plan and SCA extract the plan. All those generally which you can able to do. You can create the configuration plan, using the WLST and using the JDeveloper and using the ANT tool. These are the syntaxes. Let's we see how you can able to prepare using the JDeveloper and what is the sample configuration plan. It would be like this actually. Then once you create, you can modify the configuration plan, depends on the requirement, and you can validate it. And whatever you want, you can able to do on the configuration plan. But this edit generally configuration plan requires that that the assembly model structure and all the service artifacts which is used by the composite.xml only. So let's we see how you can able to create and how you can able to deploy. So go to the configuration, composite.xml, see here, will generate the configuration plan. I just created, this is your plan.xml file and which was going to be created under this path application 1 and project 1. So click on OK. So I have created, right? So what I have to do, how I can able to deploy using the configuration plan. So what I have to do here, click on the application and go to the deploy. See, it should be look like this, composite.plan.xml file. And what I have to do here, click on the SOA composite application, deploy, and click on the SOA sample deployment and select this one. Click on next. This time you have chosen, right? What I have to do this time, I need to be choose, plan.xml also. Click on next and click on next. I have select the default existing connection. Click on next and click on finish button. Now you are deployed using the deployment plan. So you can do that deployment plan using the different methods also deploying. Like example, go with the ANT and as well as WLST even from the EM console also. So once it is completed, we'll able to see that process also. How you can able to deploy the SOA composite application using the configuration plan. So it completes the SOA deployment here and sending the SOA to the EM console and you can test over there. Then once it is complete here, so deployment is finished. I'm just going here, going to the EM console. See what I have to do here, by default, which I defined to the default partition actually. The moment you expand it, here only it is going to be displayed. I didn't change the partition actually, whatever it has going to be looking the default partition only I have deployed. This is one method how we are deploying the SOA composite application with configuration plan and it is optional, it is not a mandatory. Select the SOA part, right click on the SOA partition, then go to the SOA deployment, click on the deploy to this partition. In the sense I already select the partition. To this partition only I am deploying. See here, you can browse the SOA composite application in which path you are getting. Then similarly like that, see you have to be browse that configuration plan in which path it is available. Right. And you can deploy it, which is already deployed. And if you deploy the same thing, it will get that, error, which is already deployed actually, right? So this is how you are going to be deploying the SOA composite application with configuration plan in using the JDeveloper or using the EM console. See, if you want, you can modify the already prepared configuration plan. Go to here and right click on this prepared config and you can see generate and validate. In the sense, you can modify. You can modify and you can replace with and you can whatever you want you can able to do it. After that you can validate to this composite.plan.xml file. You can modify and you can validate the config plan after modifying it and whether it is going to be creating or not. You can modify and you can validate this configuration plan.xml file. See, generally, when you can able to edit this configuration plan file, replacing the following attributes and properties generally as needed. Example, any composite service component reference and service and binding properties in the SOA composite application file. That is one reason. Second reason, attribute values for the binding. Example, the location for the binding.ws instance web service, the schema location attribute of an import and visible file, and the schema location attribute of the include, import, and redefine in an XSD file. Any properties in the JCA adapter file you can modify and you can policy reference for the service component and service reference binding components. So in this way, generally you can able to modify the configuration plan depends on the requirement. So this completely completes about the SOA deployment. In this, what we have seen generally, we have seen all the deployment composite application, like including the component and composite, what is the SAR file, and what it is the directory structure, what is the revision, and what is the partition, what is the SOA bundle, how we can able to create and manage all the SOA partitions generally, Then what are the deployment methods was there? Then now you can able to deploy into the SOA composite application, managing the application lifecycle versions, then after that, after that we have moved into the advanced deployment call, how you can able to prepare the configuration plan, how you are deploying, attaching with the, you know, the configuration plan. So then after that, how you can able to modify it. That part we have seen. So this is in the SOA composite application deployment process. How to manage the composites. So once I have completed this one, I'm moving into the next topic called how you can able to manage and administrate the SOA infrastructure. How you can able to manage and administrate the SOA infrastructure. Administrating the SOA infrastructure. So what we can able to do in this, so let's use I need to stop this. Right. So what I can able to do in this lesson generally, I want to explain about the SOA infrastructure functionality. Then how to configure the SOA infrastructure, common properties at the SOA infrastructure level, how to manage the SOA infrastructure, monitoring the deployed SOA composites to the SOA console. In other words, SOA infrastructure. So these responsibilities generally which you can able to do in this lesson generally. So what first you can understand the SOA infrastructure concept. So whenever you deploy the SOA composite application, just now I have seen, like all these are the different SOA archives or SOA composite application you can deploy to the specific service engine. Example, if it is a people process, you can deploy it to the people. If it is a mediator, deploy to the mediator. If it is a business rules, deploy to the business rules. And if it is a human tasks, and you can deploy to the human tasks. And all these generally which you can able to manage in the service infrastructure. So how you can able to binding those components generally depends on the requirement you can bind by using these binding technologies. Then you can binding those SOA composite applications, sends messages to the from SOA composite application to the external application. So this is about generally SOA composite application runtime environment architecture. So what I have to do? So how the SOA infrastructure generally, what it is. So whenever you are starting the SOA console, right here, this is also one of the enterprise application. SOA console is one of the enterprise application in WebLogic. So that WebLogic admin console, it is a web browser based application, but whereas in SOA, this SOA console application, SOA application is nothing but it is an enterprise application. So it executes in the WebLogic server environment. So you just go to over there and check it, which is going to be executes and coming into the running mode in the WebLogic server admin console. So once it is coming into the running mode, then only you can able to access the SOA console. Else you cannot able to manage you cannot able to log into the admin SOA console. So how you can able to manage the SOA composite and their life cycle, service engines and service infrastructure and binding components in the service infrastructure or in the SOA infrastructure. It could be separated into the partitions to manage the SOA composite applications and groups. Let's we see in the admin console, go to the admin console and go to the deployments, click on next. So all these are the coming into the running mode. So click on next. These are all the applications actually, enterprise applications and source adapters. See SOA infra. So here SOA infra, so it comes into the active, then only you can able to access the SOA infra, else which is not possible. Right, this is the default application which deploys to the SOA admin console generally. Whenever the SOA infra comes into the active, then only you can able to access the SOA console like this one. SOA console and expanded SOA infra, then you can able to access this SOA console features and all those, right? So that is what generally here I explained, right? So once it is coming to the running mode and you can able to access the SOA console, and what you can able to do in the service infrastructure generally, you can manage the composites and their life cycle and service engines and service infrastructure and binding the components and including the partitions support actually. Right, what is the SOA infrastructure architecture? How it is going to be starts and what is the life cycle generally? See, first whenever you start the Oracle WebLogic server in the sense admin server, then after that start the SOA server. It is a GTW application. Then this is first actually, second and third. So once it is coming to the running mode, generally it is going to be checking about the composite application deployments. If it is there any deployments, it is going to be deploys. And composite metadata management, it is going to store the runtime information under the UDDI repository and into the data source, right? First, it is going to get that UDDI repository data, then which is executes those components generally to the specific service engine. So if that composite it belongs to the BPL, then executes the BPL service engine and get the information from the SOA database, because all the runtime information would stores under that only. Then after that, you can manage the SOA composite management, all the runtime information like installation, targeting, and composite instances, and all those. So all these runtime information generally which is going to be stored under the metadata service. Then after that, you can do the task control services like thread management, thread assignment, and as well as request processing. Example, you can start, stop, activate, retire, all those tasks which you can able to do in the last step. Very important interview question. So what is the WebLogix, what is the SOA server or SOA infrastructure life cycle? How it is going to be processed the request? This is the process generally. What is the sequence generally? This is a sequence. In middle it is going to be starting these services also. So in this way it is going to be starting the SOA infrastructure. So how it is going to be starting the SOA infrastructure, which is very important. Then what is the SOA infrastructure lifecycle generally? So initially when it is going to be loading the SOA infrastructure, then after that, SOA infra configurations, then SOA infra basic services. Like then after that, what are the composites you deploy? Those composites generally which is going to be starts, right? Which is executed by their specific service engines and activate binding components. Then after that, so regarding this composite application runtime information, which is going to be accessed from the metadata service and loads that runtime information to the components and targeting the corresponding service engines and execute it, and which is ready for accepting the client's request and waiting for the incoming request. Once the request is coming from the client, and it can manage it in the sense, route the request to the service engines depends on the required and binding the components and managing the SOA composite life cycle. Very, very, very important and question. What is the service infrastructure life cycle? This in this way or in this way, this is what after you start the SOA server, then now you can able to manage it. This is what SOA infrastructure life cycle. Very important interview question this is. So then after completing that, so what are the engines which are available in the SOA infrastructure? So to execute the business logic or to execute the a component regarding their specific engines generally which have the corresponding components within the SOA infrastructure or within the SOA composite application, which is include like BPL. For executing the BPL composites or BPL business logic, which have the separate engine called BPL engine, and for human workflow and mediators and business tools and BPMN and Spring. All these are the specific service engines which was there for deploying and processing the business logic about their specific service engine properties. No, from my side there is no way to breaking.
Hello.
Yes, yes, okay, okay, no problem. Hello? Able to hear, right? Without any issue. Shiva, are you able to hear me?
Hello. Okay, sir. It is good.
Right.
Yes, yes.
So understanding the service engines generally, to execute the business logic about their specific components which you have all these service engines actually. Let's we see understanding the SOA infrastructure. Later we will go with that. See, whenever I want to provide any internal message transport infrastructure for connecting the components and enabling the data flow, for that generally which is responsible routing the messages along with the wire connection and between the service and service components and references generally, which requires service infrastructure mediating services. That is what generally mediators it has going to be available. Then what are the binding components generally? So let's we see one by one. I'll go to over there and Linux. Say expand the SOA infra and go to the SOA infrastructure here. See first home we have seen all those. So service engines generally. If you just go to the service engine, all these service engines generally, which is used to host the business logic about their corresponding components and service. That is what generally managing components we have seen. Understanding the service infrastructure means how it is going to be enabling the data flow from one component to other component or one service to another service and component and references generally. So SOA infrastructure is responsible, which contains the internal message routing called mediators within the SOA composite application, which is enables by the SOA service infrastructure, how it is going to be connecting to the components how it is going to be doing the enabling the data flow, and the SOA infrastructure which is responsible for routing the messages along with the wide connections between the services, service components, and references. And what are the binding components generally? So binding components which are responsible in the service infrastructure, which needs to be connected to the, or which needs to be established the connectivity between a SOA compositor application and the external application. There are two types of bindings which are available: service bindings and reference bindings. Service bindings means, so generally which provides an entry point to the SOA composite application, in the sense it has going to be binding within the SOA composite application only. Within the SOA composite application only. Reference binding means it has going to be enables message to be sent from the SOA composite application to the external application and external services to the SOA composite application. This is about the binding components. Next we see how to configure and manage the SOA infrastructure. Right. Then how to configure and manage the SOA infrastructure properties generally, So let's we see, how you can able to configure. Go to the SOA infrastructure. First expand the SOA infra. Go to the SOA infrastructure. Then select the SOA infrastructure and go to the SOA administration and click on the SOA configuration properties. So you can able to get like this. First you can able to monitor about the SOA home page. So then here it is going to be displaying the following tabs actually. Recent composite instances. What are the composites you deployed recently, which is going to be displaying all those, and under the deployed composites, what are you deployed recently, which deploys all deployed composites, it is going to be displaying here. And recent false and rejected messages, you will get any false and rejected messages, and you can able to see over there. Then so service engines and as well as the composite instance and its false, you can able to monitor on the SOA infrastructure homepage. You just go to over there. This is what generally SOA infrastructure homepage, whatever you have said, recent composite instance deployment and all deployed composites generally, how many applications you deployed, all the composites it has going to be displayed here. And recent false and rejected messages which is going to be displaying here. Down service engines and as well as the composite instance false, it is going to be displaying. So in this way, you can able to monitor about the home page, about the SOA infrastructure. Then after that, generally, you can configure the SOA infrastructure properties. Like you can configure the following properties for the SOA infrastructure level, like audit level, composite instance state to capture and payload validation, and UDDI repository and callback services and fault count metrics, search criteria, and Java naming directory interface and data sources and web service binding components. So very important question. So what are the parameters or what are the properties generally which you can able to configure at the SOA infrastructure level? So these are the properties or parameters which you can able to configure at the SOA infrastructure level. How you can able to move to that? Go to the SOA infrastructure, go to the SOA administration and common properties. Then you can able to get like this all these properties. Okay. So whenever you edit any composite, any parameters at the SOA composite level, these SOA composite properties generally which are going to be reflected to the entire service infrastructure. In the sense, all service engines which are going to be applicable. Until unless you will go to the specific service engine, if you change, then it won't applicable, right? Else, all the properties, what are the properties you can able to edit at the SOA infrastructure level, which are going to be reflect to the entire service engine properties. Let's we see how to configure it. Go to here, SOA infrastructure, SOA administration, and common properties. I'm just clicked on the SOA common properties. See, in this generally it is going to be having the following properties. SOA infrastructure common properties. What are available here? The first property, audit level. Here we have the following audit level types generally of production and development. So what is production generally? Production, first we'll able to see audit level. Whenever you do change audit level in the SOA infrastructure level, so it is going to be, applicable to the entire SOA composite, for which you have explicitly set the different audit level or payload validation values at the composite application level. So this will impact all the deployed composites. In the sense, it is going to be reflected to all the SOA composite application. See what is the edit level by default of production, and depends on the requirement you can change to the default and off, and what are those generally. First we will able to see audit level production. Production means generally the composite instance tracking is collected, but mediator engine will not be collected the payload details, and BPL engine will not collect payload details for assigned activities. So this level of audit level generally which is preferred in the production environment. Most of the cases we will go with the production environment, audit level production only. Development mode means it allows both composite instance tracking and payload details tracking in the log file. However, it may be an impact in the performance. This type of level generally which is suitable in development mode or debugging phase. And off means no logging is performed, composite instance tracking and payload details are not collected. So this is about audit level. So by default, which is production only. Then composite instance state. What is the composite instance state? Generally audit level, see here, we can configure like this. Payload tracking, no, all this information. Then what is the composite instance state? Another interview question, another important interview question. What are the composite instance states which are available in the Oracle SOA suite? So the first one generally, running. If server is running properly, generally, if servering running properly, so generally whenever you deploy the SOA composite application, so which deploys into the SOA admin console without any problem means that composite instance state means running. And if whenever you raise any request for the SOA composite application, generally if it is completed, then you will get the completed, and you will get any error, then you will get the faulted. And if those faulted recovery is needed, so you will get that state recovery needed. Stale means which is not in use or which is completely in a out of control, and terminated and suspended state not available. All these are the different valid states which are available in the composite instance state, right? To capture this composite instance state, we need to be enable this tab. We need to be enable that option. Very important into your question, what are the composite states which are available? So here what I need to do, capture the composite instance state, I need to be enabled, depends on the requirement. Go to over there, capture the instance, turning this generally this will allow for separate tracking for the running instances. However, this may impact on the performance, depends on the requirement only, which you can able to select this option. And payload validation means generally, it has going to be validating both incoming and outgoing messages generally. So depends on the requirements generally, which you can able to select that payload validations, right? So it is also impacting on the performance. Then next, configure the UDDI properties generally. What are the UDDI properties? Registry properties. In the SOA infrastructure, whenever you can find the option with red mark with green mark, generally whenever you change such kind of parameters, so those changes generally cannot take place immediately, need to be restart the service infrastructure. So what is this generally? You have to be provide the inquiry URL, in the sense registry that UDDI inquiry, then username of that registry inquiry, then password of that registry inquiry, and server URL. Like you have to be provide the URL that server that sent by the server as part of the asynchronous callback address is the behavior. This is server generally, which is this URL which is published as part of the SOAP address of the process in the visual. You have to be configure these properties to the server. Then after that, you just go to the next one. So how you can able to control that once you edit such kind of parameters? So go to the SOA domain. Here you have the SOA infrastructure. Right click on it. Control. You can start up and shut down. This it would be possible whenever you configure the node manager from the EM console. You can able to do that process. Then once you edit those properties, then callback server, which I have seen as part of the asynchronous service, we need to be configure it. In this way, you can able to configure the data, configure the SOA infrastructure level properties. And here we have the data display options. See, by default, it has going to be improving the EM console loading, time. It has going to be improve the enterprise, manager paging load times. So by default, generally, what will happen? It has going to restrict display or display of instances and faults to the last 24 hours only. If you disable that one, so generally, what will happen? It has going to be check avoid the it has going to be disabled, like all the instances and fault counting metrics. Each metrics can be still retrieved on the demand. So this is actually, it has going to be improving the performance while it is loading. And click on the advanced, otherwise click on more properties. Every property or every configuration which we require the more properties, I just clicked on the more properties and see whatever we have seen in that additionally, it is going to be displaying the some properties. And here access RW means read and write, R means only read. Audit level, it is going to be displaying only your option, and depends on the requirement, you can remove and you can type in maybe development or off. And go to here, you can configure the callback server URL that just now we have seen, and you can change the JNDA name for the server data source. This is what default data source may be referred to any data source, and you can change depends on the requirement once you configure. Then you can configure the global transaction max retry, generally, so the maximum number of times a global retry fabric invocation exception can be retrieved before bumping up 2 seconds generally. 2 times, not seconds, 2 times it is going to be bumping up. Then global retry limit, actually, so 3 seconds, actually the number of seconds in between the retries in the case of global retry fabric exception. Then, which you have seen this HTTP server URL, you can configure in the processing in the WSDL, and this is also processing in the WSDL. And key store location, so the path of the SOA platform key store for protecting this, then these are the parameters generally which you can able to configure. If you go down here, TX data source JNDA, this is what actually, JNDA for the server transactional data source. This is default data source. Whenever you create the SOA infrastructure, it is going to be takes automatically. If you want, you can configure and change it. All these parameters you can able to change. Once you can able to change and click on apply, so then it is going to be applies, else you can revert back and click on the operations. Nothing was there here, and you can validate and click on notifications. Is there any notifications which are going to be getting to the service infrastructure? You can check about here. So in this way, you can able to configure about the SOA infrastructure properties at the SOA administration and level, SOA infrastructure level. These properties only you can able to configure at the SOA infrastructure level. Then after that, how to configuring the log files generally. So generally, components generate log files generally which contains the messages that record all the type of events in the log files. How you can able to configure, then how you can able to edit, then how you can able to, monitor that logging. So go to here, logs, and click on view log messages. You can view the messages actually in the service infrastructure only. See here, the moment you click on here, so it is going to be displaying here only. Otherwise, this message you want to export to the different, otherwise, change to the target log file. In the sense you want to, download or view the log file. View means you can able to see here only in the admin console. And what I have to do, I want to download this log file generally. Download to your local machine and even analysis at also. So you can save to this log file to your local machine and you can analysis it, what exactly it is going to be doing at that moment. Server log file generally. This is how you can able to view and how you can able to analysis the SOA log files on the EM console, and as well as if required you can download to your local machine and you can analysis. How to configure actually? Click on the log configurations. Then so click on the log files. So it displays the default actually. What I have to do, if you want, you can create new log file. So click on create and provide the log file generally to which you are creating log file path, and select the log levels. These are the log levels which are available in the SOA console. And so select the logger attributes and which is associated to. Then rotate policy. So based on the size, by default it will able to do. Then based on the time. So this is what generally rotation policy depends on the requirement. You can able to configure the log file like this and click on save button. So then after that, what I have to do, so once I have completed this one, next what I have to do, how to edit the default log file path. By default, which is going to be stored under this path, select the log file and click on edit configuration. So log file path generally, which is going to be displayed here, log file path which is going to be displaying here, and select it. And these are the notifications, log levels generally it is going to be displaying. If you want, you can erase this one. You'll give a path, your own path. It is going to be stores under this path. Then rotation policy based on the size or based on the time, which we have seen in the WebLogic server, how to rotate the log files. So by default, it is going to be rotated based on the size. After reaching the 50 MB, automatically it is going to be rotate the or recreating the new log file, and click on save button. In this way, you can able to configure the log file, edit, and you can create and you can view the log file. How to monitor the SOA infrastructure after completing that? See, monitoring the SOA infrastructure, go to that SOA homepage and you can monitor about all these generally. Go to the SOA infrastructure homepage and click on the dashboard, you will get all these. So what it contains generally, recently composite instances. So recent application what you deployed, so composite application to the EM console, that it has going to be displaying under here. See all the composites like 10, 20 which you deployed into the SOA admin console, right? That it has going to be displaying on the deployed composites, all composites. And recent false and rejected messages. What are the false and rejected messages recently we got, that it has going to be displaying here. And click on the service engines. So it has going to be displaying about the service engines, number of components, one human workflow engine, how many it has going to be fault, then how many it has going to be deployed. Click on the composite instance false and rejected messages. The total number of instances since server startup and false since server startup, it has going to be displaying here. See here. So depends on the requirement, it is going to be displaying like this. You can monitor like this on the dashboard. Click on the deployed composites. All deployed composites, it is going to be available here. View, you can change the columns. What are the columns here? It is going to be displaying. Depends on the requirement, you can able to display. Select the SOA composite application, and it is going to be start and stop, and as well as retire, and you can set default application, default revision. If you have more than one application, you can set as the default revision from here also. Okay. So in this way, you can able to do that, operations like startup, activate, shutdown, retire, set the default composite, which application you want to set the default, you can set after deploying the SOA composite application into the EM console. And click on deploy, you can deploy, undeploy, redeploy. All operations generally you can able to see in the deployed composites. And click on instance generally, by using these details generally, which you can able to search the deployed composites. So very important interview question, what is the ECID? ECID is nothing but the execution context ID. Based on this only you can able to track the complete composite instance application message flow, right? So any one of the parameter you can type it here, and click on search button, you will get only that particular SOA composite application only. Example, so I'm searching here, providing the SOA composite, instance ID 310, I guess. So yes, go to instance. So I want to search only application I need to get. See, only application which is getting only the SOA composite application only which guards. So this is how you are going to be, searching those SOA composite applications. So only running, only completed, only terminated, and still depends on this execution state also you can able to get. And fault state, no faults, all faulted, and fault recovery required, non-recoverable faults depends on the requirement you can able to search in those also again. And false and rejected messages, the moment you click on this one, even you can able to search based on the fault. Actually provide the fault ID and click on the search button, then you can able to get. Otherwise based on this fault type also you can able to search. And once you recover that fault, you just delete those rejected messages and click on the recovery options. What are the recovery options which was there? Specify the criteria and select it. You give the proper valid inputs, and you can click on the retry of that exception general or fault, then it has going to be recovered it. And abort means you just abort that fault. So this is about how you are going to be monitoring and managing and administrating the SOA composite deployed SOA composite applications. Then now we can able to monitoring the request processing generally, monitoring the service and the reference bindings, monitoring the service bindings. And let's see how we can able to monitor those. Go to here, click on here. I need to be monitor the request processing. So go to here, all the service engine generally. Take the BPL, then average request processing for the synchronous and asynchronous and active request and request process and false regarding the BPL. Similarly like that, other service engines also which is available here. So you can able to monitor how much time it will take to process the request. Is actually service engines are containers that are host the business logic or processing rules of service components. While it is doing, how much time it is going to be taking for synchronous and asynchronous interactions. The moment you click on here service engine, it is going to be displaying only the service engine performance issue. In the sense only it is going to be displaying about the only BPL service engine you can able to monitor and track the performance. And if you clicking on the event, if you clicking on the different individual instances also, you can able to monitor, and you can monitor the service infrastructure here. So internally connects the components and able to, and it enables the data flow. Service infrastructure which is going to be enables internally connects the components and which is going to be enables the data flow in between the components, service components. Then how it is going to be, how much time it is going to be taking for asynchronous and synchronous transaction, active request and request processed and false. And binding components means external. So this generally these binding components which you can able to enable or connecting to the external component or external world from the SOA composite application, how it is going to be containing, or how it is going to be connecting SOA composite application accessible to the outside world, so that it is going to be monitoring here for both synchronous and asynchronous processing time, and as well as request process and errors. So in this way you can able to monitor about the request processing, then monitor about the rest, servicing, and as well as the references. Go to the services and references, click on it, and you can monitor about the services, and so how it is going to be provide the outside world an entry point to the SOA composite application. Click on references, generally how it has going to enable the message to send from the SOA composite application to the external world. This is how generally you can able to monitor about the SOA infrastructure. This is completely how you can able to configure and manage, monitor and administrate the SOA infrastructure level. I have explained the SOA infrastructure functionality and the configuration of the SOA configuration properties. Generally these properties which are affected to the all SOA composite application, and manage the SOA infrastructure, and at the last we have seen monitoring the SOA composite application and deploying to the SOA infrastructure, all those which I have seen. So you can see the practical, these all those things you can able to see in future, you can able to practice. So changing the SOA infrastructure configuration properties and monitoring the results, and all these you can able to monitor in the SOA infrastructure, and in this concept generally. Clear? This concept clear, right? Stop recording. So after completing that one, and we will able to see that how you are going to be administrating and Oracle GC adapters and binding the components. So what we can able to do in this generally, how you are going to be enabling the binding components, and as well as configuring binding components properties, and monitoring the component instance files, and how to configure the JDBC, and as well as JMS, and as well as file adapters. So let's we see the first understanding the binding components. So what is the binding components and what it will do in the SOA infrastructure. So binding components generally which is useful, or which is going to be enables, or which is going to be establish the connectivity between an SOA composite application and the external application. It is going to be provided the connection in between the SOA composite application and as well as the external application. So that is what generally which we can call it as binding components. There are two types of binding components which are available. The first one, service binding components. Second one, reference binding components. So what is service binding components? So in between the SOA infrastructure, it a service infrastructure generally it is going to be enables the connection in between the service component and enables the data flow within the SOA composite application. So that is what generally which you can call it as service binding components. Reference binding components which is going to be enables, or which is going to be enables the connectivity between the SOA composite application and to the external application service, or to the external application. So which we can call it as reference binding components. All these binding component properties which are available under the composite.xml file, because in that only it is going to be binding one component to the another component, depends on the business flow. What are the supported binding components which are available in the Oracle SOA suite? Generally, JCI adapters, whatever you are discussing that only, and web services adapters, HTTP binding, and BAMP adapters we will discuss, and B2B binding, and ADF service based. All these are the different binding components which are provided by the Oracle SOA suite. So let's we see generally how you can able to access the service and reference binding component page. Start the admin server, start the SOA server, log into the SOA console, expand the SOA node, click on the SOA infra, select the SOA infrastructure and go to the service and references. There you can able to see services and as well as the reference binding components. Service generally which is going to be displaying the components, service components, So how it is going to be establish the connectivity in between the one service or service component to another service component, so that it is going to be displaying within the service infrastructure under the service tab. And references means how it is going to be established or enabling the connectivity in between the SOA application or SOA composite application and external world or external application, that it would be displaying on the reference tab. In this way, you can able to access service and as well as the reference binding component page for monitoring about that. How to configuring and monitoring the binding components generally. So configuring service and binding properties after you deploy the adapters composite application, you can do like this. Example, this is one SOA composite application, get PO file service file adapter. Depends on the requirement, you can able to, you know, configure the service binding properties, right? So this is what generally, you know, we'll able to see later, this configuring the reference binding components, and this is what configuring the service binding properties for FTP adapters. File adapters generally, which is used to you know, convert or which is used to move the data from one location to another location, right, within the one location to another location. Right. So monitoring the binding component instances and faults generally. So after you deploy the binding, SOA binding or something like that, adapters composites into that, you know, EM console, you can monitor. Depends on the requirement. Then see what are the JC adapters generally. So overview of the JC adapters. So we have seen in the developer, in the J developer, they can design and they can deploy. We can deploy and we can monitor like this. I have shown above. So what is the adapter service generally? This is what generally which you can call it as, you know, JC adapter generally, which is going to follows the or enables the JCS standards, Java connectivity or Java connector architecture JCA means. So these adapters generally by integrating with these existing applications through the JCA, and we can connect to the external application. This is another way of, you know, binding in using the SCA composite, in the SCA composite generally. This is what existing application functionality, and you can connect to the external application. This is what overview or something like that adapter service. Whenever client wants to make a request, then it is going to be processing to the SOA composite application. First, it is going to be checking about whether it may be internal or external reference. Then if it is an external reference, again it is going to be connecting to the service and executing the, you know, or connecting to the external application. So then after that, what we need to do, so so in this way it is going to be integrating that adapter services. Let's we see generally. So in the J developer, what they will do generally, whatever, so we are going to be configuring here, something like that file or FTP adapter, JMS or EQ adapter, these are the technology adapters generally. Database, Oracle application, Scikit and EJB services. These are the different adapters which are available. And see here, JC adapters, how it is going to be integrating with those SOA composite application in the WebLogic server. So this JC adapter configuration we will be able to see in the WebLogic server. So these generally you can able to adapter wizard generally which is available under the G developer. Then you can integrate in the with SOA composite application by using this, you know, adapter concept. So how it is going to be, you know, packed application and legacy adapters generally. So this is what generally external applications, adapter application exposure. What are the packed adapters which was already there? CBIL, SAP, PeopleSoft and GD Edwards, these are the legacy adapters. So generally in the WebLogic server, what I need to do, already there adapters. By clicking on the adapter, what I have to do, I need to be create connections, and depends on the requirements generally. I need to be create, then, you know, these generally which is going to be connecting. So to this SOA composite applications. Generally, you are connecting from the SOA composite application to these external applications. So after you create and you will able to integrate with BPLR mediator and J2W applications are, you know, packed adapters components or legacy component. This and this you can able to connect, and these packed adapters you can integrate with this, and legacy adapters you can legacy. So let's we see how you can configure the database adapters and as well as, you know, JMS adapters. See database adapter which is used to, you know, move the data from, you know, flat file to database, and that is called inbound interface, and database to flat file outbound interface. So what it is going to be doing, database adapter. So database adapter generally, which works with the Oracle BPL process and mediators. So which is used to communicate with the database, generally database adapters. Like it can be insert, update, delete, merge, and select that information from the database, and depends on the requirement, it is going to be stored into the database, and later it is going to be exposed to the flat file also. Example, let's see how you can able to configure the database adapter configuration. So this adapter configuration you can able to do at two levels: design time and as well as the developer administrator. Like at runtime also you can able to do. Runtime we will do, design time will do by the developers. See, at runtime whatever the details we are going to be configuring, same details they are going to be configuring here also with their adapters, and they are going to be preparing the .jar file, and we are deploying and managing it. See, design time generally whenever they are going to be configuring the DB adapter, which they require the connection factory, JNDA name, and which is used by the SOA composite application, and JDBC connection name, and as well as this is a reference link to the physical resource. Then at runtime, same properties generally which I need to again configure, which needs to be configured again will go to the developer. Developers, by using those by using those properties, they are going to be designing the database adapter for the composite application. Then let's we see how you can able to configure the database adapter. First, I need to be create the database user. Then thereafter that I need to be issue this following details. I can create, and later I need to be create the connection pool like this way. First, we'll see how to create the database users. So go to the administration console. I already started the Oracle database also. Go to the application, launch Oracle database. I'm just creating the database user actually for configuring the JDBC database adapter. I'm logging into the database console. Even you could do from the backend also by using the SQL commands. See what I have to do here. Go to the application express. I need to be logged in actually. So enter the username. See, whatever you created the schema while you are configuring the RCU, go with using existing and click on. I'm just creating the new one, a new database user, and provide the database username. SOA demo and SOA demo. SOA demo. Even password also I'm giving the same thing. And click on create. So it is going to be creating the new database user. Successfully created workspace. Right? So how I can able to see storage? See, just now I created, right? SOA demo, where it is created. All these, how much space it is going to be occupied, we can able to see. SOA infra 81 and dev infra, how much time, see how much space it is going to be takes action in MBS, we can able to observe here at runtime, right? So I'm just going the home generally. I need to be check about that, what are the schemas generally which I configured. So here you can able to see the sessions. So all these sessions generally active, inactive. So which are coming from, click on the parameters. You can monitor about all the parameters. Click on the applications here. Click on the application express. This is normal applications generally. See, these are all the different schemas which are available. Just now which I created one, right? SOA demo, HR, dev info, all these schemas under that it is going to be stores. Right, this is how you're going to be creating. So generally, then after that, after configuring that, I need to be log into the administration console. Next, click on the JDBC in the administration console. Expand the services node. Click on the data source. All these data sources generally which are created while you are configuring the SOA. Select the generic data source. Able to see here, you need to be provide. See, click on deploy, then go to the XE and provide all these details generally. Select the Oracle type or database type Oracle, click on next and click on next, click on next. Provide the database name, XE default, host name, local host, port number 1521, SOA demo username, database username, SOA demo, SOA demo, and click on next. Needs to be test the configuration. Make sure you'll get test connection created because I gave you my own details, right? So click on next and select the target and click on finish button. If you go to over there, which I created similarly like that, my own data source. Then next what I have to do, so go to the deployments. After you create this one, go to the database adapter. Steps clearly you can understand. Go to the deployments and click on the database adapters and select that ESIDV SOA demo. Click on new and provide this data source name and click on OK. And after completing that one, update the database adapter. In a sense, redeploy again it. So click on configuration, go to the outbound connection tools, select this one, click on new and click on next. Create the connection factory which is created, JNDA slash SOA demo. That only I gave you and click on finish button. See it is created. Sorry, which I haven't applied generally. So what I have to do generally, I need to be click on OK. Then what I have to do after completing this, so what I need to do, which is updated into the plan.xml file. So next what I have to do, I need to be I need to be redeploy this database adapter dot wrap file in sense for updating, in the sense for ready to be deployed. So go to that update button, select the database adapter and click on finish button. Make sure you'll get active. So then your database adapter configuration is completed. Click on the deployments. After you configure the database connections, select this database adapter and click on update and click on next and click on finish button. Make sure which comes into the active again. Right. So database adapter which comes into the active. So next, coming to that, how to work with the JMS adapter, then how to configure the JMS adapter. So whenever you configure this JMS adapter generally, so which we can able to use those JMS resources like topic and queue by using these JMS adapters. Similarly, like that, whenever you configure the database adapters, use those, JDBC adapter, JDBC resources to that adapter. Right. So to apply the JMS adapter in the SOA composite application, what I have to do in the runtime, in the WebLogic server administration console, I need to be configure the following resources. What are those? First, I need to be configure the destination with JNDA name, such as queue on topic and connection factor with the JNDA resource names. Then after that, I need to be configure the adapter connection pool JNDA name associated with this connection property. Right? A design term adapter, JMS adapter P developers, they will use these details and they will able to configure the JMS adapter with these details that reference then the server side resources. Let's we see how it is going to enable the connection. This is what generally global JNDA. So by using this JNDA generally, the JMS client will get the connection factory from the connection pool from the predefined connections in the JMS adapter. Once it is enabled the connection and it is going to be create the session and which needs to be required the destinations. Those destinations generally, just hang on 1 second. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, Madhav.
Okay,
Yeah,
sir.
Right. All right. I just got some call actually.
okay.
Right. See here what will happen here. So I need to be create the destination section, distributed topic and distributed queue, and based on that, generally it has going to be using these resources by the JMS adapters and processing it. So that process how you can able to see using this adapter configuration at runtime in the administration console. That part we'll able to see. First, go to the JMS module, and there you have to be click on the SOA module. We need to be create the topic and queue and connection factory. We need to create both three. Then after that, what I have to do. So go to the deployments. In the deployments, what I have to do, click on the JMS adapters. You need to be create the connection factory for that and click on finish button. So then after that, what you have to do, you need to be redeploy that adapter. Then if it comes into the active state, then you are configured successfully the JMS adapter with creating the connection pools. Let's we see that part generally, how you can able to create it. This first you have to be create that connection factory and queue on topic. So then after that, just to go to the deployments, click on the JMS adapters and click on new, and you have to be configure all these things. Then click on save button and you can redeploy. Then redeploy the JMS adapters. In this way, you can able to redeploy the JMS adapters. Let's we see photo over there here. The process will able to see. Right. So first, what I have to do, expand the messaging node. Click on the JMS servers. So it is already configured some JMS servers. These are all the JMS servers. And click on the JMS module. So click on the SOA JMS module. So I need to be click on new. First, I need to be configure the connection factory. So click on next. SOA connection, SOA demo CF JNDA slash SOA demo CF. Then click on next and click on finish button. Similarly, like that, what I have to do, I need to be create the queue also. So click on next and click on next and click on finish button. Click on new topic, click on next. Click on next and click on finish button. See what I'm trying to tell here. So whenever it required, generally you can able to configure the sub deployment also. How we can able to configure the sub deployment? Click on new. After you click on the SOA deployment, and you can provide the SOA demo SUB and click on next and select the target SOA JMS server and click on finish button. So then in this way you can able to configure the sub deployment also. So depends on the requirement, you can attach sub deployment to the queue on a topic. So this is about how you're going to be configuring the resources. Then after that, for configuring the JMS adapters, click on the deployments already there, right? Go to the JMS adapter, click on next and click on next. Here you can observe, click on next, click on next and click on next and click on next, click on next. So where it is available JMS adapter? No, I guess. Right. There you have the JMS adapter. Now it is coming to that too, and click on it. Click on the configuration and click on the outbound connection pools and select this one, expand this one and select this, and I'm creating the connection factory right here for all these using the queue on topic. Just wait. Just click on different one. Click on the JMS adapter, click on configuration, then click on new, select this one, click on next, provide demo CF, connection factory name, SOA demo CF. Click on next and click on finish button. So then after that what I have to do, which I created, then which needs to be updated to the deployment plan, right? And which needs to, for that reason, to use all the whatever I configured till now, for that what I have to do, click on the deployments again and go to the JMS adapter and select this application, click on update it. So it comes into the active state. I just updated. Click on next and click on finish button. Make sure this application comes into the active state. Okay. Go to here and I can able to see. Then in this way you can able to configure any adapter, either it may be file adapter or it may be a AQ adapter. The configuration which remains the same. First you have to create the resources and click on the adapter and use those details and redeploy it again. If it comes into the active statements, your deployment was successful and you have configured successfully about those particular, adapters. So database adapters generally in the composite application need to be configured which of the following resources: JDBC, data source, in that connection pool. These two connection pool only which I need to be configured. Right. So we have seen generally after you deploy the SOA composite the adapter application into the SOA console, then now you can able to operate services in the SOA composite application, activating the specific properties generally. See, this is a design term generally will do by the developers and regarding the file adapter. So if I take the file adapter generally, how I can able to move the data or something like that from one location to another location generally by using the file adapter. So file adapter inbound configurations, whenever you are configuring that file adapter you can able to see. So these all the inbound configurations, you can able to see this and you can able to configure these product properties like select and path where you want to store that file, all those information. So then this is destination directory, this is from source directory, from destination to this one directory to other directory, how you can able to, or one place to other place, how you are going to be moving inbound file adapter configuration. Then outbound generally you can able to check about in which file it has going to be stored, that one whether it is available or not. Outbound file adapter you can able to check it, inbound and outbound file adapter. See, while you are checking here, if there is no values which are going to be loading into that different directory, you can able to check about all the configurations in this adapter configuration. So whether it was successfully configured or not. So similarly like that, we have configured the database configuration. Once you configure into the administration EM console, you need to be edit the properties like this. Click on that SOA composite application like retry count. The default value is 4 times it has going to be maximum number of retries before it has going to be rejection. Retry limit 1 second actually it has going to be takes. Retry backup, it specifies that interval growth factor by default is 2 and retry maximum limit is by default is 120. Maximum number of retry interval that it will take 120 by default 1 and default value is 120. So these are the parameters generally which we can able to set in the in the inbound and outbound adapter configuration to handle the retriable errors. Whenever you will get these errors, generally you have to be configure these properties. And retry count means generally and it has going to be rejected and retry or exhausted generally. So in the sense rejected messages are the messages that are error out before being posted to the service infrastructure. So how it has going to be posted into the service infrastructure, then if it has going to be rejecting, immediately reject if that exception is non-retriable. Then so retried indefinitely means if that exception is retriable, then all the properties which you can able to configure depends on the requirement. Then after that, so deleting the rejected messages from inbound adapters depends on the requirement. This is all the process you can able to do after deploying the adapters into the SOA infrastructure. So this how you can able to monitoring and configuring and managing about the adapters concept. Clear? In this, you can able to get how to configure the adapters and what type of adapters you have configured in the SOA suite. You can tell to them, I have configured database and as well as the JMS adapters, and these are the steps. And while you are configuring, did you get any problems? Means you can tell to them. Then file adapter means, so I didn't work on it, but I have a knowledge on it. You just tell same the process only. Even it was a file adapter also in this. So file adapters, see same process only, configuration and so click on new, just create the connection factory and use for every adapter. It would be the same process. You are going to be connecting to the outside or external application, right? Admin objects and everything you can able to do like this only. But what is the purpose of the adapter? How you can able to move the data from one location to another location. That is purpose of the JMS adapter generally. How to file adapter. Then how to configuring it, same the process, and you can configure it and you can test it. So this you can able to see as practical what you can able to see how to configure and manage the JDBC and JMS and file adapters and how you are deploying and managing. Then after that how you managing and monitor deploying the SOA composites adapter components into the SOA console. Clear? Hello? Are you clear this one?
Okay, clear, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
So take 10 minutes gap. We'll back in 10 minutes. Okay.
Okay.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Then after that mediator, service engine. So these two we'll be able to discuss. Okay. Very important these two. So what is a BPL process service and what type of BPL process service which are available? Then how to monitor and administrate the BPL service process. Okay. And after that how you can able to deploy and manage about those BPL service properties. Right. Right, all right. So what is the BPL process generally? So what we can able to do? what we can able to do in the BPL process generally. No, so administrating the BPL service component and service engines generally. So what we can able to discuss in this generally, we need to be describe about that what is a BPL component and what it is doing, then what's the purpose of the BPL component. Then some of the sample BPL applications generally whenever you deploy into the SOA infrastructure, then how it is going to be managing processing, then what are the properties generally which you can able to configure at the service engine properties, then now you can able to change or change the audit levels both at a composite instance level and as well as at service engine level. Then how to monitor the BPL sensors, including that variable sensors and all those, and how to manage the process instance and its faults generally. How we will able to discuss in this BPL process. So let's we see the first, what is the BPL generally? So very important entry question. So what is the BPL? BPL is nothing but business execution process language. The acronym is nothing but what, business execution process language. So by using this generally, what we can able to do, we need to write the, services. We need to design the services and we need to be integrate those, all the services, all which we can able to do by using the BPL. So BPL is a markup language in the sense, for combining or, for orchestrating the services into one end-to-end and end-to-end application flow. Understood clearly? BPL, what it is going to do, it is a language generally, which is completely built on the XML. What are the XML syntaxes generally? In XML follows the syntaxes and as well as process to design the services. Same thing which is used to follow the BPL also. That is the reason BPL is the markup language which is used to combine or orchestrating means combining the services into an end-to-end business application. So depends on the business requirement. It has going to be combining all the services or it has going to be integrating all the services into an end-to-end business process flow. That integration or that combining will do by the BPL, right? So the BPL generally completely which builds on the XML syntaxes and as well as which is designed to integrate with the web services, which is completely built on the XML specifications. So generally, the default behavior of the BPL, it is going to have the two BPL process. The first one is an executable process, and second one is abstract process. And since executable process means no, it is going to be executing. Then after that, abstract process means based on the business protocols, it is going to be combining and as well as processing the data flow. Let's we see the first one is what is the BPL process. See, BPL process means BPL process manager. So these are executable generally, like BPL composite applications which you can able to design and pack into the SOA archives. Those BPL processes then generally which are executable, right? So either it may be a short-term transactions, either it may be a long-term transactions. So generally, it describes about two things actually BPL process. What is the BPL? In BPL process service engine, the first one is what BPL process. It is the executable, right? It can be a long-running implementations or long-running transactions, which is used to explain about the following charts example, So special controls which are used for branching and joining and exceptions. Whenever you get exceptions, which is managed by using the BPL process only, it has going to be execution, right? Executing is the process of transporting the data. How it is going to be enabling the data flow in between one component to other component, so that it is going to be enabled by using the BPL. BPL executing the process of transporting the data through the chart. Then the BPL process, there are two types of process which are available. Synchronous communication, second one is asynchronous communication. What is the synchronous BPL process and what is the asynchronous BPL process? Synchronous BPL process means block the client when being called, in the sense request response or communication. So that is called synchronous BPL process. Asynchronous BPL process means, right, which are not blocking the client and may use the callbacks. Example, I will take some example actually. So I will make some call to you people. Immediately if your response means, so that is nothing but what, I block the client when when being called synchronous generally. So you are not lifting my call or unable to reach actually. So in that case, generally what will happen? Probably you may use the callbacks after some time you may call back. So such kind of communication, such kind of transaction or such kind of interaction, you can call it as asynchronous callbacks. And immediately you can call back means request and response. Asynchronous means separate callback. These are about the two BPL processes which are available. It can be used any one. Most of the time we will go with the synchronous only, but it supports both. So BPL process components and service engines generally, whenever developer they designed about all the components, all the activities using those BPL activities, they are designed one BPL component generally. So those BPL process implemented as part of the SCA also. In the sense, you can design as part of the SOA composite application. Otherwise, you can design, so BPL component separately. So it depends on the requirement, which kind of model you use, and based on that, it is going to be execute and compound services. So generally, BPL process generally, consists of the steps, and each step it is called one activity when it has going to be processing. Assume like that. So developer they designed one BPL process component, then they are going to be deployed into the WebLogic, into the SOA console. So in that case, then who are responsible? What are the containers which are available for managing and processing the data flow in between the other service components actually? So we have the component called this business process, whatever you designed by the developer, which are executed by using the execution engine called BPL service engine, which is executed by whom that business logic, so which is hosted and executed and processed by using the execution BPL service engine. So that is used to host the business logic or processing the rules of the business service components. So that will do managed by using the BPL service engine. So generally BPL service engine, what it has going to bring, it has going to be stores state persistently to preserve the state information about the BPL process. Example, there are two types of, there are two ways generally to store the, state of the people process. One is transient, second one is durable. Transient means it has going to be stored within the, BPL service engine or within the BPL application in memory. Then, dehydration means it has going to be stored into the, database, in the sense, persistent data source. In the sense, in the database, it is going to be syncing that people process component runtime information. By default, it is going to be syncing to the database only. So what is the service interface in this generally? So it is going to be processing the visual. Visual is nothing but web service description language. It is going to be providing the way to service interface generally. Then what is the operation generally? So in the BPL application, functionality being executed by the operation. Message structure means, so based on the request, generally it is going to be provide the optional data. Example, if it is synchronous means we'll get, if it is asynchronous means we'll get the callback service. So what are the activities generally? Processing the flow of instructions. What are the instructions will go to the BPL process engine? It has going to be execute those activities. And partner links means generally you have the partner links, which is used to enable the references to the external application or external services. We can combine this BPL component to connect to the external application. So by using the different binding components actually. So right, it describes the role of the interacting parts actually. This is about parts of the BPL process. Whenever you will the developers they are going to be designing all these parts generally they will go through it. While you are deploying the BPL process components generally, you can come to know this for better understanding purpose. What is the activity? What is the partner link? Message structure and operation and service interface. Then BPL partner, you have the one thing called BPL partner. What it is generally, BPL partner, which is going to supports two different interactions. One is how the partners invoke a BPL process. Second one is how the process may invoke the BPL process. In the sense, this one partners may invoke the BPL process. That is one way, and BPL may invoke the process. Right? BPL invoke the process, or partners may invoke the BPL process. Generally, the link in between those partners and BPL, which is defined, or that relationship generally which is different to the partners. So that client invoke partners generally links to the partners called BPL process, and the client partners links to the partner which invoke the BPL process. Both we can call it as a BPL process links only. By using this BPL process, so we'll have at least one client actually, which is the partner that activates all the BPL process. That is about the partner link, which enables the two different interactions. One is partner may invoke the BPL process, BPL may invoke the partners. So that is what actually BPL partners. And BPL variables means there are two variables which are available. Whenever the developers they are going to be defined, so these we can call it as BPL variables. So those BPL variables, what it has going to bring, which maintaining the data for processing the activate and communication with other services generally. There are two types of BPL variables which are available: global variables and local variables. Global variables means both variables which holds the current process state and exists the duration of the global process or local process in which they are declared in the BPL process. Let's we see what is a global and what is a local. Global means it is reflect to the entire composite, and local means which is specific to that service component only. So how the data is going to be sending, or how communicating data with the BPL process. Let's we see when our clients make any request which is going to be forwarding to the BPL process. So generally before that it is going to be defined that input into the XML schemas, and will go to the BPL process. So BPL process, it has going to be asked about the input variables. These are called scoped variables. And input variables means, so what are the inputs you are going to be entering? Based on the inputs, generally it is going to be generate the output variables. Those generated output variables will go to the BPL process. BPL process again which converts into the understandable way of the client, and will give to the response to the client, and client will display the output. So based on the input variables, output variables is going to be populated with the response data, right? So visual generally based on the XML schema it has going to be defined, right? Visual which has going to be defined based on the XML schema elements. So let's we see how to configure the BPL service engines, right? So then later we see how to deploy the BPL service engine properties, then how to monitor it. Before that, what I have to do, how to deploy the BPL applications. So let us I'll go to the SOA console and click on the CTS part and go to the SOA deployment, deploy to this partition, click on browse, and go to the Linux desktop SOA composite application. I'm just going with the BPL. I'm selecting this BPL sample application order booking. Click on next and click on deploy. So this application is going to be deploying to the my EM console. Right. So after that, what I have to do, I need to be test this BPL application. See how I can come to know it is a BPL or not. So click on the SOA infrastructure. Go to here, bindings, sorry, service engines. Go to the BPL. See one application recently which I deployed. All these applications which are deployed recently, already booking components generally, right? So these are going to be managed by using the BPL service engine only. I'm just clicking on this already booking composite and click on the test and see ticket booking process, otherwise ticket booking in progress or ticket booking in progress. I'm just going with a holiday booking. It is going to be asking the name, something like that name Samsung, and source from Bangalore to some holiday actually, a destination, some different TN, and holiday date when you want to go with that holiday date, in 2015 and 22 month 12. See, after I gave you inputs, go to here, click on test web service. See, able to see status, your request successfully received, then already booking response. Generally, your request has going to be approved, right? So this, who are going to be process this? Actually, the moment I give the input details or input parameters generally, based on that BPL service engine, it has going to be generated the output variables with response data. So in this way, you can able to test it. And monitor means click on the SOA infrastructure. See here, you can monitor all the deployed composites. The moment you click on here, request processing, go to the monitoring, request processing. This all day booking, it will go to the BPL service engine. Go to here, two requests which are processed. See here, all the components you can monitor here under the BPL engine. Then what I have to do after completing that, how to configure the BPL service engine properties. Right. So go to the SOA administration and BPL. So I'm just going all these properties as an administrator we need to be configured actually. It depends on the requirement. We have seen only one common properties. Next we are going to be a monitor and administrator and configuring the BPL process service engine properties. Similarly like that which you have all the rest of the properties which you need to be configured as an administrator. Go to here SOA infrastructure, administrator and BPL. Only one component which I have completed. I'm just clicking on the BPL properties now. See here it is going to be displaying the BPL properties like so how audit level generally settings inherits hierarchically. Generally Whatever you set audit level under the SOA infrastructure by default, which is going to be applicable to the service engines and as well as the SOA composite applications and as well as service components also. It is going to be inherits by default. It is going to be takes precedence over the higher level to lower level to higher level. But until unless you'll go to the specific service engine, so whenever you change the edit level, then it is going to be reflect. It won't reflect to that specific service engine. Audit tracking can be set to the multiple levels. One is at SOA service infrastructure level. So then after that, how you can able to change the audit level generally? First, you can able to change at the SOA composite level. Let's we see. Go to here. You can able to see this audit level. Later we'll able to see. So this is what. Then what I have to do? I have deployed some sample application, right? Click on that holiday booking. So go to here settings. From here also you can able to change. By default, it is going to be inherits. Inherit means it is going to be inherit audit level from the service infrastructure. Whatever you have chosen at the service infrastructure level. Example production. Same thing which is going to be inherits here. Else I don't no need of that inherit in the sense same value I don't want to inherit here. Depends on the requirement. I can select any one of this audit level to this only specific composite instance, whether I want to enable disable. So depends on the requirement. I need to enable disable the business monitoring and as well as that audit level. So once I will complete this setting at the composite instance level, I'm just moving into that next. What are the parameters generally I need to be configured at the composite instance level? Just now I have seen, right, all the composite instance level properties. Then what is the synchronous process and what is the asynchronous process? I already told you synchronous BPL process means see both something like that. You can block the client being synchronous process in the sense the moment you'll give the input response, it return an immediate response. That is what generally which you can call it as synchronous BPL process. In the sense you are going to be blocking the client until operations are completed. Then if immediately aware of the invocation failures also, sometimes you will get some failures also when you are in synchronous service. And unsynchronous service, asynchronous service means so you are processing the input, so there is no way it does not return the response immediately. Maybe optional, so depends on the requirement. You'll get the response through the callback operations, like all those. So generally so it is good for generally a long period of time. There is no limit actually if you define the some limit. So in that limit generally it is going to be callbacks. Right, example, or take anyone generally, something like that. You have applied for something, then if that some specified period which is not giving the reply, you're going with a different one. That is called, well, generally asynchronous service. There is no limit actually. If you have the limit, this is long period of time. So that is also, it is not a small limit. It is a long period of time. So how it is going to be giving the input to the service, then optionally you will get the callbacks. I may or may not you will get the response. See here, immediately you will get the response with output variables with generated response or populated data. This is about the synchronous and as well as the asynchronous services. So the moment I'll go to over there here, SOA infrastructure, SOA administration, and BPL properties. The first one, the property is what audit level. So in the audit level, generally by default, it is having the inherit. What it is actually default inherit only. Logging is the same as the SOA infrastructure audit level. Whatever you have chosen, same thing it is going to be inherit. So off means no logging is performed. Composite instance tracking and payload tracking information. Minimal means generally instance tracking information is collected but not payload details. And production means so instance tracking information is collected but payload details for the assigned activities are not collected. And development means it allows both composite instance tracking and payload tracking, right? So depends on the requirement you can able to choose. By default it may have the inherit. So what is the audit threshold? Very important one. Audit threshold. See, audit threshold and all those generally go to over there. Audit threshold means generally the maximum size and audit trail details that can be stored before it has going to be stored into the audit trail. By default 5,000 or 50,000 bytes actually. So coming to here, large document threshold. See the BPL variable, you know, how much BPL variable, how much size it has going to be stores in the BPL variable before it has going to be stores into the separate location. By default, this much. That is the reason. So after source with 11G onwards, it is processing the large documents also due to this reason only. It is going to be processing large documents, right? So reset to the some instance scope data also. Right, what we need to do, this is the default, depends on the requirement we can able to tune. All these parameters will tune again in the performance tuning, depends on the requirement to get the high performance. Dispatcher system threads. So what are the dispatcher system threads and dispatcher invoke threads and engine threads? Very, very important, these three threads. Dispatcher system threads, which are which are used for, both, what I can say, which is allocated to process the system dispatcher messages. System dispatcher messages means in general, it is used to clean up the tasks that are typically processed quickly by the server. So what it is going to be doing, dispatcher system threads, which is used to clean up the system process, whatever the services which are processed quickly by using this service engine. By this generally what will happen to speed up the business process, right? By default, two threads, and depends on the requirement you can able to change. Dispatcher invoke threads and dispatcher engine threads. Very, very important. Dispatcher invoke threads generally which are going to be handle the asynchronous request, which are going to be handle the synchronous request in the sense. So for processing the synchronous request, which we need to have the following threads called dispatcher invoke threads. And I want to process, dispatcher engine threads means only the asynchronous services it is going to be processed. It is going to be handling the asynchronous, allocate to process asynchronous messages, right? So generally, the BPL process deployed are durable with a large number of dehydration points, and since which requires the asynchronous messages generally, so that time, so you'll get on message, on alarm, and wait, and greater performance may be achieved by increasing the number of engine threads because it is used to processing the synchronous processes or asynchronous services. So depends on the requirement you need to be changed. Understood that all these three dispatcher threads, important interview question this is. Dispatcher system threads, which are used to, clean up the system process, which are processed quickly by using the BPL, all the services. And dispatcher invoker threads, which are used to allocate these threads for processing the synchronous, services. And dispatcher engine threads, which are used to processing the asynchronous services. Whenever you increase this thread, generally you can able to increase the performance also. So what is the payload validation generally? By default, which is disabled generally, which is used to validate of incoming and outgoing messages to this engine actually. So if you select this one in this engine, generally it has going to be decreasing the performance, depends on the requirement you can able to choose. Then disable the BPL monitor and sensors. We'll come to know later what are the sensors and all those. Then let's we see after completing these BPL threads, then you can developers they are going to be designing the BPL processes like sample. Then after that they can deploy. So just now we have done. Then after that how you can monitor the SOA composite applications. So in the SOA infrastructure, then how you can able to test. Then if you get any faults, how you can able to manage. In the last we'll able to see fault management. For time being, you can able to see only that SOA composite application monitor and managing and administrating only. So then after that, let us we see how what are the sensors. This we'll able to discuss again fault management. What are the sensors generally? So why we require sensors in the SOA suite? Important interview question. What are the sensors? Sensors which are used to monitoring the SOA or BPL applications or BPL components or BPL services. BPL services. So which we may have the sensors, which is an oracle construct that enables users to monitor key execution points, or data in their BPL process. There are three types of sensors which are available. Activity sensor. It has going to be monitor the execution of the activities within the BPL process. Example, they can monitor, they can monitor, so they can monitor, the execution time of an invoke activity or how long it takes to complete the scope. So all those generators are going to be monitored by using the activity sensors. And what is variable sensor generally? Variable sensors, it is going to be monitor the how the BPL process it is going to be, process the variables, all the parts of content. Example, so how you can monitor input and output data of a BPL process by using the variable sensors. And fault sensors means it is going to be monitor about the BPL faults, then how it is going to be, validate and throws the faults in the BPL. Then composite sensors generally, the other one composite sensors which are provide a method for implementing tracking fields on the message. So all these generally which is used to monitor incoming and outgoing messages and as well as faults and as well as activities in the BPL and variable sensors it is going to be monitoring about the input and output data of the BPL processes. So they generally these sensors which is configured and they are going to be integrated with the BPL while they are going to be designing, then automatically it is going to be monitors by selecting these by default which are going to be disabled actually to select forcibly disable by default which is enabled to monitor all the monitors on the sensors in the BPL service engine. Already it is enabled. If you select forcibly we are disabling, and this is about how we are going to be configuring the sensors. Even developers also they are going to be creating with the sensors and based on that you can able to monitor the data and variables in the BPL service components. Then how you can able to enable the sensors generally which are enabled to monitor the BPL process activities, variables and faults during at the runtime. So by default, which is enabled, whenever it required forcibly, you can able to disable in the EM console by going through the following navigation. Expand the SOA infra, go to the service infrastructure and go to the SOA administration and click on the BPL, then disable the BPL sensors, depends on the requirement. So in this way, you can able to monitor by using the BPL sensors. So then after that, how you can able to process and manage the, that this we have seen how we can able to manage the BPL process service engine faults and request and thread statistics. Generally go to here, click on the more BPL configuration properties, whatever we have discussed, same properties which is available like this and some additional properties. Generally synchronous and asynchronous and audit level by default it is inherit. Read write means you can read and write, or means you can read only. You can configure all these properties. Database sensors, there are following sensors which are available. Disable by default which is fault means enabled, you can make it true and those are disabled actually. Dispatcher engine threads, invoke threads, system threads. Then dispatcher maximum request depth in the sense a maximum number of internal messages that engine will be processed by default 600. If this number is exceeded, then the new message won't be dispatched. Again, we need to be set to the 600, depends on the requirement. So in this way, you can able to configure the BPL service engine properties. I already told you, large document showed the maximum size a BPL variable can be, before it can be stored, before it has going to be stored into the separate location from the scoped data. Specify the number of invoke messages that can be kept in the in memory or cache, or once the engine hits, then this limit hits this limit. So this is about you can change according to the requirement. So read only and recovery config, and you will get all these read write properties only. You can able to change it. So in this way you can able to configure, and after that you can click on apply button, and so this is how you are going to be configuring the BPL level properties. Then after that, how you can monitor about all the faults and as well as and the thread statistics generally. Right. Let's we see. So go to the SOA infrastructure here and go to the service engines. Click on the BPL. I need to be know about monitoring about the only BPL statistics. Here it has going to be monitoring about all the dashboards. And click on the statistics. I want to know about all the BPL processing statistics generally. How much requested has, how many requested has going to be pending, activity execution request, BPL process management request, new instance request, and delivery status, and so active request. This is what pending request status statistics, and these are active request statistics. And if you go down, generally it has going to be used the thread statistics, active threads, or highest number of active threads only one it has going to be processing. And thread breakdown, if you expand this one, it has going to be displaying the thread breakdown, right? Request breakdown, and similarly like that here, threads, So in this way, you can able to monitor the statistics. So click on the instance, and you can search the you know BPL components by using the instance ID. Then you can search it the particular engine and click on the faults. If you get any fault, you can able to manage your faults and click on the deployed composites. You can see all the deployed composites to the BPL service engine. If you get any fault, generally click on the recovery and you can able to do the recovery. So in real time, generally what will happen, there are n number of faults which are going to be generated. You cannot able to go through like this and you cannot able to search. Come to know that fault ID generally or something like that, the fault ID or all these parameters. Based on that, you can able to search it and you can recover if it is recover actually. Click on the recovery option and depends on the issue, you can able to recover and refresh the table after that. So in this way, you can able to monitor after deploying the SOA composite applications, right? So in this way. So then after that, what I have to do, how you can able to manage with the BPL process fault recovery. See what is the BPL faults. So let's we see discuss how you can able to handle the faults in BPL. See, for BPL and as well as the mediators and as well as the adapters, there is no separate fault handling. Whatever we are discussing, so that those for those component also same fault handling only. Right. So what is a fault generally? Fault is nothing but runtime error. It is nothing but what error. So generally there are following challenges which we have in the SOA. What we can able to do in the SOA? So we need to be, prevent the degree of impact on the SOA servers and as well as, SOA composite applications, because, we need to be reuse those, services across the SOA infrastructure. So what are the types of exceptions or, fault types which are available in the SOA? There are two types actually: anticipated and expected. Anticipated means like inputs actually. If you give a invalid input, those are anticipated. So solution also it has going to be displaying over there only. Unexpected means at runtime you will be able to get, maybe it is a code issue or something like that, any other different issue. Runtime you can able to get. So by managing all these faults, generally exceptions at the runtime, so what we need to do, we need to reduce the complexity about the SOA component, specifically by handling the fault management. So let's we see, there are two types of faults which are available: business faults and runtime faults. Anticipated faults nothing but business faults only. Runtime faults nothing but what technically or system faults. Let's we see what are the business faults. Generally these are application specific. So this business logic generally which is decided to handle the fault. Example, so I am entering the some invalid inputs. I just go to over there, I'll show you that business faults. What are those? Click on the holiday booking. So I want to test this one. So what I have to do, I need to be enter these details: name, holiday booking only, right? Source, name. What I have to do, date, I'm generally I'm entering the date differently here: 22, 12 and 2015, and click on test web service. See, invalid argument validation failed, and it has going to be giving the solution here only, right? So click on OK. It is generating the fault, right? If you see in a XML view, directly it has going to be displaying. See, date format, it should be in a different, you gave a wrong one. You have to be edit here only, right? You can edit here only and click on retry. This is one fault generally. Such kind of faults we can call it as business faults. Yeah.
Madhav, it's stuck, Madhav. Hello?
Hello.
Madhav, it is stuck. I don't know. It's stuck totally.
Right. So categories of the business faults we have seen. Category of the faults. The first one is business faults. So it depends on the application specific generally. Business logic generally which decides how to handle those faults. Example, so which we have seen here. I just entered the different, so or invalid arguments. There only it has going to be showing the problem, and you can able to edit and you can retry generally. So such kind of faults you can handle easily generally. Maybe the business faults, anticipated error like failures in the business state and input data consistency, generally exceptional states. Example, whenever you are entering the invalid account number. Example, if you take that in a bank account, maybe the limit is 10 zit. Somebody will enter 7, somebody will enter 11. So it has going to be limit actually. So it's like example, whenever you take the credit card application, credit card limit is exceeded, then something like that. Those are called, business faults. You can come to know easily. Those are expected errors only, and which defined in services called WSDL, those Then what are the runtime faults generally? Runtime faults means which are unexpected generally, remote fault, in other words, binding faults, all the infrastructure faults whenever the SOA infrastructure service down or network problem or connection timeout issues, all these are the problems generally, infrastructure faults. So what we can do whenever you'll get the infrastructure faults, we need to be check about the log files and we need to be troubleshoot those issues. And data format issues means probably, some data structure. It has going to be inappropriate data structure and corrupted messages you are going to be, getting. So those faults generally which comes under the runtime faults, also technically known as the technical faults or system faults. Business faults means, all the anticipated problems. How you can able to handle the BPL faults generally? These are the standard business BPL faults in the BPL. Like if you take the 10 standard BPL faults, select failure and conflicting receive and conflicting the request. All these are the different standard BPL faults, and the developers they are going to be, by using these faults, developers they are going to be define the faults in wisdom. Whenever you will get to so those scenarios, generally automatically it is going to be rise the exception. And what is the runtime faults generally? What are those generally? By default, generally you can able to get runtime fault generally which is thrown inside the activity. Example, see connection refused, visual read error, generic remote fault, and this is the description about the fault generally. All these are the binding faults. While you are binding, the faults are going to be thrown inside the activity. These are the fault code, and this is the description generally you can able to see. Then whenever you want to, whenever you'll get the runtime fault generally, you will get the replay fault generally. Replay fault means replace the activity inside the scope. So Oracle BPL server then re-execute the scope from the beginning. Replay fault whenever you'll get, you just replay fault. In the sense re-executes every BPL, server, the BPL server from the beginning again. And how you can able to implement the faults generally in SOA suite. So generally developers they are going to be design while they are designing the or developing the components, they can write the faults, either it may be runtime faults or either it may be business faults. Then how you can able to, they are going to be designed in the following areas generally. So how you can able to this fault management framework, this is normally you can able to manage in the SOA composite application. So this fault handling framework generally, fault management framework, this framework which was introduced after WebLogic Server 11G onwards, before does not have. So also 11G onwards only. Then what it is going to be doing, whenever you will get any implicit errors, it is going to be handling and coded into the process. Example, so for earlier generally we have only the earlier we have only before WebLogic Server before Source 10 11G we had only the BPL faults it has going to be handling in the EM console. But after Source 11G it has going to be came with a solution called following enhancements, mediator, adapters, and BPL faults, all generally which is used for this fault management framework only. So externalize your error handling, then policy driven, intended for the technical faults and as well as the business faults. So you can able to do that, engine level. There is no impact on the business design and no impact on the process in the runtime also. These are all the XML based faults actually. We can define these policies under the, you know, XML files and manually. So WebLogic Server SOA administrator, what you need to do. So these are all the XML based faults. Just now we have seen right in that. So these are all the XML based faults. Generally, these XML based fault policies, generally conditions for the fault, fault name, and set of actions like retry, human intervention, replace scope, and throw, fault, abort, custom. All these are the set of actions. Very important. What are the fault management conditions or faults? Generally, what are the recovery actions? Generally, those are recovery actions. And centrally, you can manage it from the SOA console. Manually, you can resubmit or resubmission supported through the EM console, in the sense Enterprise Manager console. So developers they are going to be intercept the faults before they are going to be handling or integrating with the fault handler. So they can design the fault policies like overrides by using the any fault handling in the BPL process. Example, all the faults they are going to be defined in the fault policies.xml file, like fault process ID, policy ID, fault name, export exception, and action references. All those generally they are going to be defined by the developer in the fault.xml file. So generally after that it needs to be integrated with fault bindings.xml file. It has going to be binding all the faults with, so infrastructure, in the composite application, binding by using the fault-binding.xml. So what are the recovery options generally? The first one, retry. Retry means you can enter, see, assume like that you have entered some invalid input. You can entered properly, and retry the failed operations again with specified wait time. So it has going to be, do that retry and continuing the processing if you have, entered the proper details. Retry count, 3, and retry interval 2 seconds generally. Human intervention means from the EM console, SOA administrator will do that, human intervention and do the console based recovery falls. Example, what are the faults which you can able to do? You can able to do in the EM console. Example, console based recovery and possibility of changing the values of component variables. All those generally which we can able to see under the human intervention, which is managed by the SOA administrator. Abort process means you can come out from the fault generally. You can temporarily you are suspend the process, abort the process generally. And replay scope means generally I already told you replay activity which is going to be starts the re-executing the SOA server, complete the, from beginning again. Rethrow fault means this fault generally into the process instance. Then Java actions means custom code you can write for handling these options, handling these faults. Where code can be performed additionally tasks and select the recovery option instead of doing the manually. Right, handling retry success, handling fault in the sense it is going to be invoked based on the policy type and invoked upon the successful retry limits generally. I already told you all these policy actions generally you can binding with the SOA composite application in the SOA in the fault-bindings.xml file. In this you can able to define SOA composite application and components like BPL and mediator associates with the policy defined in the fault policies with this binding.xml file. Very important entry question. What are the two XML files generally which are available while you are managing with the fault management framework? Fault-policies.xml file, in that you can define the policies about the faults, and fault bindings.xml file you can bind, or you can associate all the fault policies with the fault binding.xml file. Example with SOA composite application and components within the SOA composite application. Example BPL, mediator, and adapters. And what are the human intervention, recovery generally which you can able to do in the console? So console recovery generally. So enterprise manager SOA based console. So we need to be examine about the fault generally first whenever it has going to be generating. Either it may be a, input variable, or examine the fault information and perform the recovery action. Depends on the fault actually. If it is a input variables problem, you can enter the proper inputs and retry it. And if there is no problem, you just click on the continue and rethrow and abort and replay. All these recovery actions which you can able to perform in the fault management framework in the administration SOA administration console. Very important interview question. What are the recovery options? How you can able to handle the faults? So I handle only the human intervention or console based recovery faults only in the SOA administration console. So I can perform the following recovery option. Depends on the recovery, depends on the fault type: retry, continue, rethrow, abort, and replay. All these console based generally. These are actionable, available generally. Set outcome to the and continue. Rethrow for general, what it is going to be doing. User decides activity output can be skipped or manually entered again, and continuing. This is what generally continue. And rethrow unit means generally you can user can rethrow data then through an outside scope full handler generally. Replay activity means user can replay the scope with change data values. Abort process means user can abort the fault process. So these are the faults generally which you can able to monitor. How you can able to monitor the external faults, runtime faults, and all those faults. So in the lab, what you can able to do, you can see how you can able to monitor that logs faults in the for BPL only. How to handle the faults in BPL? Go to the SOA console. Go to the SOA console here. So click on that SOA infrastructure. See one fault which is generated actually the moment you click on the holiday booking, because I haven't entered proper valid inputs. How you can able to get? Click on the false and rejected messages, go to there, see it is going to be displaying here, and click on that recovery, click on that application and click on the recovery with the options. There are two recoveries which you can able to get. For time being, which I have not selected the any composite application, right? So faults in holiday booking composite generally. So you can retry, you can abort, depends on the requirement. You can able to choose and click on recovery and click on yes button. So based on the interval, it is going to be recover that issue. So in this way, console based faults which you can able to handle in the BPL, and similarly you can able to handle in the mediators and as well as the adapters. So let's we see, I'm get back into this actually, how to monitoring, faults in the, we have seen, right, how to monitor the faults. Just now see all the faults which are going to be generated on the SOA console. Click on that fault and read about the fault. If it is recoverable, click on the recoverable with recoverable option. After you enter the proper details, you can retry or abort, depends on the requirement, you can able to do that part. So in this way you can able to handle the bpel faults, and in this way you can able to manage the Oracle bpel component, what it is, and what are the types of communications which was there, what are the sensors, how to deploy the bpel components into the SOA console, and how to monitor, manage and administrate, and what is the fault management, then how to handle the faults and what are the types of faults was there, then how to manage and monitoring the console based, faults in the SOA console. Clear? This completely completes about the bpel service component. So I'm stopping here. Let me see, let's we see next session.